Welcome to What is Going Ohm's Synchronize Your Energies, the show that provides clear insights into the rapidly shifting energies that are upgrading human consciousness and evolving life on planet Earth. Each month, hosts Sandie Sedgbeer, Suzy Miller, and Lee Harris share their observations and awarenesses and offer a stable means of synchronizing your energy fields so you can thrive, not just survive during these tumultuous times. Here's your hosts, Sandie Sedgbeer, Suzy Miller, and Lee Harris.
Hello, I'm Sandie Sedgbeer.
I'm Lee Harris.
And I'm Suzy Miller.
And welcome to the May edition of Synchronize Your Energies, the show in which the three of us go off-piste, as it were, with a raw and honest discussion of how the personal and collective energetic shifts in consciousness are manifesting in our lives right now, so that we, and hopefully you too, can stabilize the energies and understand our experiences from an expanded perspective. And I have to say that off-piste is a perfect description for how I've been feeling this past month. I've been straddling countries, straddling cities, straddling cultures, straddling just about everything. How about you two?
Yes, same way. It's for me, it's not so much about straddling different, well, maybe not different countries and things like that. It feels like different opportunities. It's like all of a sudden, over this last month, opportunities that had not been presented to me before were all of a sudden opening up. And there were definitely these almost, it's almost like the old patterning, the way my mind wanted to go or the way I wanted to think about certain things. I couldn't go there, or, it's like too much was happening all at the same time. And so it was almost like definitely a straddling, but for me it was more of a straddling between the old perceptions of reality and what seems to be presenting itself as my new reality. So definitely a little bit of a dance back and forth with that this month.
Yeah.
How about you, Lee?
I like the dance back and forth. So for me, it's been very expansion, contraction. Just this feeling of shedding skin and very viscerally aware as it's happening, which is usually not very comfortable. And I really have to center myself or recognize this is a moment where I can't center myself and that what I thought I was about to do in the next hour can wait. And I need to focus on my energy, and then I can come back to the task or the job at hand. But definitely this very visceral feeling of timelines moving through my body, which is perfect because that's one of the things I put out this month in my work. So I always find that whenever we're producing some work in that area, we take a deepening in ourselves around the topic. So certainly that's what's been going on for me.
Lee, does it also? I was really, sorry, Sandie, I was just curious to ask Lee a little bit of a follow-up because, and for both of you, I'm really curious does it feel like it's like these timelines or this energy is fluctuating, from AM to PM, from day to day, it's almost like what's available in the morning as all of this new energy coming in or whatever seems like to me anyway, by the PM, there's, like you say, facing some of the contractions around that expansion. Does that make sense, Lee? Are you having that experience?
Yeah, it does, but for me it doesn't. It seems really random. One morning it can be great, the next morning not so much, which is interesting because I've had, perhaps unlike you, Sandie, I've been in a fairly steady routine. I have a pretty steady routine of workout in the morning, every morning, or 6 mornings a week. And the interesting thing for me is I've really cleaned out my body in the last couple of months. I gave up alcohol a couple of months ago. I gave up sugar. So, yeah, it's interesting to notice when you go even further with your body how much more sensitive we become to the fluctuations. But no, it's quite random for me, actually, Sandie. I'm sorry, Susie. I wish it was organised because then I could plan for it.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things I'd like to say about that, and one is I was thinking about tonight's show earlier today when I received an email from Kay Patcher, who does the Pele report, the astrology, and I had to smile because the opening lines were, often it's a fine line between genius and madness, and this week you may just find yourself on it. As humans, we stand poised between worlds, above, below, light, dark, future, past, etc. In some ways, we could say that we are constant in those opposite directions, and it remains our task to stay centered, lest we lose it in the extremes. I think what you're both describing is a little bit of those extremes going on. You know, it's a real kind of polarization, a bit like a seesaw. But one of the things that I'm noticing is so much shifting taking place in consciousness, you know, and whether it's just happening to us or whether we're, you know, actively seeking it, like I did last month with a particular energy session that I had with somebody that, you know, gave me an amazing shift. But what I never thought about is how that emotional shift also sooner or later results in a physical shift. And Susie, you and I were discussing this a little while ago. I think we've both had that where, you know, immense physical shifts are taking place along with the emotional ones.
Right. It's like the physical body is responding or reacting again to whatever shifts are taking place. And I'm noticing even, you know, sometimes we can have really positive shifts, like you were explaining with your session. We can have those really positive shifts, and then it feels like, to me, like all of a sudden then the body kind of goes, okay, yeah. It's almost like I'm not used to receiving in that way. I'm not used to it being a positive outcome. And so the body kind of goes, okay, now what do I do? How do I adjust? And all of a sudden it's like some of these old tensions in the body start to arise again, and almost like I keep experiencing it like having, like I was saying, one opportunity after another presented, and it's almost like my body doesn't know what to do with the good stuff. You know, it doesn't know what to do with the new opportunities and the graces that are available, and so it's kind of tightening up in ways that maybe it didn't before because it knew what to do before, knew how to handle
protests,
and those patterns. Yeah, it does protest. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that energy is so, you know, how we react or respond, you know, to situations or what our expectations are so well woven into our bodies that when we're reacting or responding differently, if those well-worn pathways are all of a sudden not there to play with, it's like the body doesn't know what to do with it. And so it starts, retaliating a little bit. So
I'd be curious to know how many of our listeners are relating to this. You know, one of the words that seems to come up a lot lately is fatigue. You know, we've been hearing about compassion fatigue. We're hearing about Me Too fatigue. You know, we're experiencing fatigue in so many ways. Brexit fatigue, you know, and Trump fatigue, etc. I've literally had probably 3 or 4 weeks of just complete enervation. You know, I've never really understood the word physical fatigue as a physical, you know, in a physical way before. I've heard of, you know, I've experienced tiredness, but the waves of fatigue that I and others that I know have been feeling washed through their body. It's almost as if, you know, we're physically experiencing something that is has an energetic basis. Does that make sense?
Completely. And the word that comes to me is overwhelm. Because, you know, compassion fatigue, Brexit fatigue, these are all just different labels, aren't they? But I think it's the overwhelm of the energy of these times, whether that's focused on a political story or, you know, an emotional story, whatever's going on. It's just, I think it's the overwhelm of these times. Because it's funny, I get what you mean about innovation, Sandie. I've been really, it's been quite a prolific time for me with work, but I've felt fatigue. Like when I rest, I really have to rest in order to be able to kind of get back on it again. And I've, you know, that's not normal. And my body's pretty strong. And then I've heard lots of reports from people who are like, oh my God, I just can't do anything. So I've kind of put two and two together for myself and gone, well, that's not really the position I'm in right now. So it just, I feel like there's an undertow, and what Suzy said really resonates too, personally and with other people. I think we are in this push-pull time of the future, the past, the now, and they're not often communicating with each other harmonically. They're often really strong in our presence or our focus, but almost isolated from the rest of us. It's like you bring the past up in a very raw, isolated way, and then you put that away and you go into the future. So I think that's partly what can create these highs and lows. As, you know, Tom was saying, Tom Lesher, Kai Pacha, genius and madness. You know, it's like spirituality and imbalance. It's like there's a real fine line.
It is.
And it doesn't feel like it matters either whether the energy of change, can be perceived as positive and or negative in our experience. But like you were saying, Lee, it's the fatigue, it's the change itself that seems to be creating the fatigue. And, so I've been hearing a lot of people too. It's like, having different opportunities or having things presented to them. And it's almost like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps back, 1 step forward. It's like, and it vacillates like that just because there's so much available all at the same time.
Too much.
Yeah.
Too much.
Yeah, it feels like too much.
Yeah.
Hashtag too much.
Yeah.
That should be.
We'll have hashtag too much fatigue then. Yeah.
Hashtag too much for sensitives. That's what.
Yes.
It makes you wonder how on earth, I mean, how much can one cope with?
We're about to find out.
I was going to say, and you know what really underscores all of this for me is we can't control any of this. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very shocking and humbling to us because, if you go back a decade or two, we had more of what we understood as control, meaning over the speed of things, over the way things went. And I don't just mean people who are, consciously manifesting their lives. I mean everybody, because if you're not aware of consciously manifesting your life, you still feel like you're being, as we would say in England, Sandie, dragged behind the bus. Or so I think at the moment, the loss of control can be quite disabling. Like I noticed for myself, if there were a couple of days where I was fighting my tiredness because it didn't suit my schedule. And of course, those 2 days were horrible for me.
Yes, yeah.
And then as soon as I surrendered and went, oh, hang on a second, this schedule that I drew up like a week or two ago doesn't quite fit with where I am. So I'm just going to have to move some of this around and take some breaks. Then I was fine. So I feel like we're constantly being put into the now, and if we're not in the now or we're fighting it, then we're caught in a control battle. And I don't think it's easy for any of us to let go of that steady handrail that we used to know as we watch the world just rapidly accelerate.
That so resonates, Lee, because for today specifically, because there's that tiredness, there's that body ache, there's that energy in the head that's, I was telling Sandie earlier that, just a little bit wonky, a little bit not quite not quite the precise clarity that, that we might be able to get to on other days. And yet it feels like it's just like I'm just rolling over things today. It's like, okay, right now is the radio show. This morning was a class. It's like you're there and you're kind of rolling through it, and then there's exhaustion, and then you have to be present with the exhaustion. Then it picks up again, and it's like you're rolling through it again, and then it happens. It's, now that I'm saying it, it's like waves in the ocean, and you don't know whether you're being pulled under by those waves or you're actually coming up on top of them. So, lots of movement going on.
And as you say that, I feel like what I hear and what clarifies for me as you say that, Suzy, is it's like we're not allowed to not be aware of the waves. Whereas
totally,
back in the day, it's like, three weeks of doing. And it's like, oh, yeah, what have you been doing for the last few weeks? Oh, I've been doing. It's like now we're not allowed to not experience. Whereas, back in the day, it was like, oh, I went on a healing retreat and I felt a load of stuff for a week. What a lovely novelty. Whereas now it's like, no, you can't just...
You're going to live this moment by moment. Yeah.
We'll let you do stuff distractedly for a few hours and then we're going to wham you back with another wave.
Yes, that's precise. Yeah.
You're listening to What is Going On's monthly Synchronize Your Energies show, in which energy guide, author, channeler and musician Lee Harris, visionary speaker, author and telepathic communicator Suzy Miller and I engage in a raw and unscripted roundtable sharing of what the cosmic energies have been stirring up for us and for the world around us this month. Still to come, more conversation, revelation, and a powerful energy process from Suzy. We'll be back after the break.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organisation, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Connect at omtimes.com. OMTimes, creating a more conscious lifestyle.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
911, what is your emergency?
My kid shot himself.
All right, where's the wounds?
911, what's your emergency?
Please help, my son shot his brother. 911, what is your emergency? Okay. 911, please state your emergency.
Every day, 8 kids and teens are unintentionally killed or injured by loaded and unlocked guns.
It wasn't locked.
Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and End Family Fire.
Welcome back to the Synchronize Your Energies show with me, Sandie Sedgbeer.
Me, Lee Harris.
And me, Suzy Miller.
I just want to add a little bit about what Kay Patcher went on to say after talking about it being our task to stay centered lest we lose it in the extremes. He actually said it's in the extremes that the new, the unique, the different, the genius is to be found. So what the heck? Perhaps it's like standing tiptoe on a 3-legged stool to pick an apple from a tree that's just out of reach. We may win the prize or fall on our face. Such is life. I think there's a lot of falling on faces going on.
I think there is too, and there's, like he was just saying though, simultaneously there's a lot of reaching into the depths or into aspects of ourselves that we just haven't had the capacity to reach into before. And so, it's kind of like, doing some of those beautiful standing poses in yoga. The first couple times you do it, it's all wobbly and wonky, right? And then all of a sudden that stretch isn't a stretch anymore. It's like, and there's also something about that whole visual that you're giving, Sandie, about these extremes. And again, for me anyway, it feels like this whole last month has been, okay, whether the extreme feels positive or whether the extreme feels negative, it's still outside of the norm of what has been typical for me for up until that point. And so either way, we're stretching, right? Either way, we're, can we respond when we're stretching like this, or when we feel like we're being stretched in this way? And I think that, again, it's like before we might have to come from, we knew what our parameters were, and so we could get back to neutral. We could get back to basics really quickly, but now we're being stretched in all of these different ways, both into our brilliance and maybe even into some of the places that we haven't had access to within our own wounding. And so now it's like, okay, you're stretched that much further. Can you still come back to center? Or at least that feels like that's the game for this month for me anyway.
So true. I love that you talk about parameters, because again, it's like what we used to know as normal, which has now gone away. And we released a new energy update today, and I was replying to some comments from people a couple of hours ago online on YouTube and on Facebook. And a couple of people said, your updates always make me feel more sane. And I think to one of them I replied something like, don't we all feel more sane when we learn it's not just us? Which I think is part of the problem. It's like, you're in your own thing and you're like, oh my God, I'm going mad, or what's wrong with me? And then, you actually speak to a few other people and it's like they're going through it too. It may not look or feel to them exactly the way it looks or feels to you, because we're all slightly different in the way that we sense and the way that we feel and the way that we perceive, but everybody's in it. And the thing that's most shocking to me about this time, because we talk about the speed, and that's kind of, something we've talked about for years, but it's the constancy of the stretch. Whereas before you would kind of go through a stretch period in life and then you'd get a few weeks or months to kind of settle into it and assimilate it. It's like, oh, you've recovered from that one from 2 days ago. Here we go again. So there is, it's not for everybody, I don't think, but I'm really meeting and hearing from a lot of people who are going through big stretches constantly. It's no longer one a year or one every few years. It's like, oh, I'm really ratcheting my life and my experience of life fast, and that can be quite relentless. Even when things on the outside look good, it's like, okay, you've gone to a new level, externally things are at a new level, and now we're going to take you to the next level already, before you've had time to experience this one.
Yeah, we're integrating these vast amounts of information, we're integrating our vastness in much shorter periods of time is what it feels like. And every now and again it feels like that integration period just kind of is not quite long enough, or feels like it's not quite long enough. But that in and of itself is stretching us too, right? It's stretching us to receive more in shorter periods of time, I guess. Yeah. What were you going to say, Sandie? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I was going to say, we've been doing this show, this is the fourth one, and that's a short period of time, but we've been talking, privately a lot longer than that, and I don't think we've ever yet said, okay, well, I don't have anything to report this month. Nothing happened. Nothing happened at all. No ups, no downs.
I don't know if we'd be excited about that or not. Yeah.
Maybe the show should be called What Isn't Going On.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it almost feels like it would be quite nice to have a show where we say, sorry, folks, we've got nothing to say. Nothing happened this month.
You know, actually, something I've thought about this morning that I wanted to share. Every month I do a new recording for my portal community, and it's also available for people in my store, but every month I try and tune in on what's right for my group. And it was a channel, and it was called Other Timelines, Other Lives, and that was the title they gave me before I went into the vocal booth to do it. And so I wasn't really sure. I thought, oh, this might just be a load of past life information, which is fine. I just, I didn't really know what it was going to be. And the most profound thing about it for me, when I let my guides riff on this topic for an hour, was they said a couple of things that really hit me. They talked about at the beginning of, or early in your spiritual awakening journey, past lives can be a very important thing, a very important marker, a very important way of opening your energy field, and can be key healing experiences. But then you reach a place, and the world has reached a place where we're as aware of other people's past lives now as our own. And it doesn't mean we know their story, but they said, think about it. You're a multidimensional collective being, and you're interacting with other human beings who you sometimes forget are the same. Because in your story of your human relationship with them, they're the sister that you're annoyed at, or the friend that you can't quite forgive. But they were saying they're also 800 other people, and they've got all these aspects and archetypes and past lives running through them. And so really it was quite illuminating for me to hear it put that way, that we're reaching a place of hive consciousness where we may not be fully aware of what's going on in the other person, but we're actually responding to about 20 things other than their human personality. We think we're responding to their human personality, or that's how we're perceiving it, but that's about the 20th thing on the list. It's the way that their energy and our energy is meshing, and I don't know, something crystallized for me.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Lee, because honestly, it's like in the class this morning that I taught, and definitely different clients even today, there was this kind of this theme of, I'm standing in front of this person, and this person has been wonderful and amazing and such a whatever in my life, and then all of a sudden it's not. It's like all of a sudden it's almost like, and this giving of permission to be where anybody is in any given moment regarding, any interaction, because, that might be timelines interfacing, that might be timelines separating, it might be, who knows, like you say, there's a million different aspects of somebody that we're interacting with, and just because it's off in that moment, doesn't mean it will be off in the next moment. But this giving ourselves permission to really kind of go back and, okay, this is how this interaction is going in this moment. And really owning that, allowing that to be present, seems to allow some of those other things to modulate, to change. It's almost like it syncs it together or pulls it apart more effortlessly as we're just allowing what is to be in the moment regarding these interactions. Does that make sense?
Completely, yeah.
Yeah. Lots of...
It's almost as if, we're so not used to just being where we are. Mm-hmm. The pace has been so... we use the word tumultuous a lot about these times, and that's exactly how it feels. But I think for decades now, we've been on the run, so to speak, and not staying in the moment. And it's the most uncomfortable thing to do because we're so not used to it.
Yeah, we're being almost forced, if you will, or pushed back in to this central place within this full spectrum of energy that we have access to. And, I think the old programming too says, go to the highs and go to the lows, but we find out very quickly that if we actually go to the highs and the lows, we get bumped all over the place. I mean, we get really out of sorts very quickly. So I notice one of the other things that I keep hearing over and over again is just wait and let it come to you. So there'll be all kinds of experiences and, the highs of that experience and the lows of that experience. But if I follow even the highs or the lows, it's almost like I'm not where I need to be in order to be found by what's trying to find me. Yeah, it's like, it's the minute I'm kind of, okay, nope, I'm not going to chase the high and I'm not going to get overly invested in the low. I'm just going to be. That's where things seem to find me and things progress from there. Yeah, until they don't, and then I'm wonky again. So
Yeah.
I'm confused.
I think Lee got it. Let's see.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay.
We're speaking in our telepathy, aren't we, Suzy?
Yes, we are. Yeah.
You know what I got from it? It's kind of one thing that I know for myself. My biggest lesson is always my lows. My highs are fine. I'm like, oh, that's nice. But for me, it's being with my low state and not being alarmed. Because I can panic if I'm off, because I tend to be reasonably steady most of the time, and then if I go off, it throws me, because I tend to be thinking, oh, I was supposed to do this today. I can't do those things. So I've got better at being kind when that happens and being patient with myself, and like you said, just trusting that is what I'm meant to do versus what I thought I was meant to do, or even how I thought I was meant to be. And I actually feel like that's going on for a lot of people. I feel like a lot of people are pushing themselves through life, not quite sure what the hell's going on inside them, because I also don't think this time that we're in, 2019, anyone has any frame of reference for. It's not like, if you were present in 2010, doesn't mean you're going to be present now unless you've adapted, because it's
exactly.
So
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm no. Go ahead, Sandie.
No, I was just going to say, I think that's the problem. We don't have any reference for this, and that's why it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah. I was just going to say, Lee, that, mine's almost the opposite, where I feel really comfortable exploring my lows. I feel very comfortable when I'm kind of pulled into that and just allowing it to be. What I'm finding, which is maybe interesting and a little ironic, is when it's the light, when it's the upbeat part of it, when it's the, oh, everything's happening fast and furious, that's where it's like, oh, it's like a new invitation right now to kind of explore how that feels in the body and allow a presence to that, just like I would allow a presence to some of the more challenging aspects of my reality. And again, I don't think it matters which way we're being pulled and stretched right now, but I mean, we are kind of getting stretched into our genius, however you want to look at it. So
which makes me think of Sandie, because of her personal journey, like over the last year or so, and you've talked about this a little bit on the show, Sandie, but just watching you go through the last couple of years of doing your thing, but also knowing there was a bigger thing that was going to come in, but you didn't quite know what it was, and now seeing you landed in that I feel like, Sandie, you're very much a spokesperson for that for a lot of people at the moment, because I've seen that with quite a few people who've gone through a kind of I don't want to say reinvention exactly, because some of the old stuff is still there, but a need for a new thing in the world. Does that make sense, Sandie?
It does. It's you know, the visual that I get as you're speaking is of the chrysalis, you know, the caterpillar, the butterfly, and there's that period of time where nothing much seems to be happening. And, you know, for me, it's a very wriggly place to be. You know, it's very uncomfortable because I'm such an action-oriented person. To think it is to do it. But to have a thought and not be able to do it because you're waiting for timing or something else, you know, or you're not entirely, you haven't got it all yet, that is the wriggliest place. And I'm not quite ready to, you know, 100% break out of that chrysalis. I know it's coming very, very soon, but yeah, there's something, you know, and that in itself is weird for me. And I don't think I'm the only person who is feeling that their modus operandi, you know, what they're used to doing, the way they respond to the world and life is it's not even as if they're choosing to change it, but they're being forced to change it.
Yeah, I think that says it in a nutshell right there, Sandie. I mean, it's we're being stretched. It's like we're being forcibly stretched into our brilliance, you know, forcibly stretched into the, you know, our new states of consciousness. And sometimes we bitch about it and sometimes we laugh about it, you know. Yeah, and a little bit of everything in between. Brilliant.
So true.
Yeah, I've just got an image now of, you know, being this little sort of oh goodness, it's break time. You're listening to What Is Going On's monthly Synchronize Your Energy show with me, Sandie Sedgbeer, energy guide, author, channeler, musician Lee Harris, and visionary speaker and author Suzy Miller. After the break, Suzy will be gifting us with another opportunity to let go, rebalance, and synchronize our energies for the coming month. So stay tuned.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hello, I'm Lisa Berry. Join me every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Light on Living. A chance to see new, hear different, and feel more as I shine the spotlight on all the ways to lighten the load of life's challenges. Light on Living is your link to that new way you're looking for, that new understanding that will enhance your life, and that positive connection that will support your growth. So join me and you'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Opiates has taken everything and everyone I've ever loved away from me. Everything. I blew my ankle out and I got prescribed pain pills by my doctor. If making my detox public is going to help somebody, I'm all for it. I just wish I would have had a warning.
Opioid dependence can happen after just 5 days. Know the truth, spread the truth. A message from Truth, the Ad Council, and ONDCP.
Welcome back. Well, it's time for your energy process, Suzy. I'm certainly ready for it. I don't know about anyone else.
I'm ready for it too.
I'll quickly share one thing. That channel I was talking about, Other Timelines, Other Lives, the cover design has butterflies all over it because the channel refers to the chrysalis process many times. And so, Sandie, that just made me smile because, yeah, I think that's such a theme right now.
Yeah,
well,
I think for all of us.
Yeah, and let's use that theme as we go into the energy work too, because it's exactly what keeps coming up. Is just when I look at the collective here, everybody's kind of wiggling and shaking and moving in this chrysalis. It's like, a little bit of I don't want to come out and a little bit of how do I get out. So, yeah. Yeah. So, are you ready, Sandie? You ready for it?
I am. Go for it.
All right. Let's do it. Okay. So, again, if we just all take a nice deep inhale and exhale, and before we go into any of the energy work, let's just bring ourselves all the way back into this chrysalis. Let's see ourselves there, instead of fighting it, or trying to kind of get out before it's time to get out. Let's just allow ourselves, give ourselves permission to be exactly where we currently are. All right, and just notice that space around you. Notice what you're being held by. Notice if there is an opening in that space, in that chrysalis, or if it's still tight around the body, around your form. And again, instead of trying to make it anything that it's not, just allow ourselves to be right there. So one of the things that you're showing me as a collective is, and this goes back to what we were talking about earlier on, about the body sensations and the kind of the physical exhaustion and maybe even some of the body pain. It's almost like, the natural and organic movement, the subtle movements, are really what brings us out of that chrysalis. It's not the old patterning of moving into doing, as Lee was saying earlier. It's this gentle, natural, organic movement. Those subtle shifts in our body that allow the space to be created within that chrysalis, allow us to begin to open to a new world, literally. It's like that's what kind of creates it. And so we're in this beautiful dance between allowing what is, letting those subtle movements within ourselves, whether they be physical, mental, or emotional, allowing those subtle energies to do the shifting for us. So there's no need to force, there's no need to push, there's no need to make anything happen, but come back to self, right? Come right back to where we are in this space. Okay, hold on a second. Literally moving into new worlds, literally being birthed out into brand new ways of being. And these brand new ways of being have absolutely nothing to do with the way we were conditioned to be, has nothing to do with the way we were conditioned to do. It has everything to do with our presence, our neutrality, our in the moment awareness. So everything that is not that, everything that is maybe push or pull, everything that is struggle, everything that is kind of an alignment with almost, I would say, a force versus simply a presence or maybe even a receiving. Let's pull all of that energy up and out multidimensionally, up and out of ourselves, up and out of that chrysalis. We don't need it to get where we're going. We don't need it to become what we already are. Right? So we're pulling all that energy up and out and placing that in a sphere out in front of us. And we'll put that beautiful blue star, our totality, right in the center of that sphere, and use that blue star, use your own totality to spin out all of those old programs, Spin it until the sphere goes clear. And then we're going to compress and condense that sphere back into the blue star. And go ahead and put that blue star right back into the center of your heart, inside that chrysalis, and implode it into billions of frequencies of light. You might notice that as we implode it into billions of frequencies of light, that new patterning, it has nowhere to go. It's not like it's contained within the chrysalis. And because it has nowhere to go, it has a greater impact in our biology, our psychology, our neurology. It in some ways makes us what we already are. It makes us what we have always been. That's what's birthing forth. That's what's coming into our consciousness now. That's what we're realizing or beginning to see with real eyes. And just as we're having this conversation, you're already showing me these little tears in the chrysalis. You're showing me this sloughing off of that old skin, that old way of doing, and moving into maybe better said a state of being. That state of being is actually what's giving us those wings to fly. It's actually what is helping us identify with what we have become, with our new skills, our new awarenesses, our new perceptions, our new realities. Right? The caterpillar has a very different perception of the world than the butterfly does, simply because one crawls and one flies. And the way you're showing this to me is that our crawling days are over, right? That perception is over. And this new flight is really about to happen. It's right here, right now. And it's like our muscles in our body are getting ready for flight. Our perceptions of the world are getting ready for flight. Yeah, we're ready to be what we've become. Right? So let's, slip right back into that space. Notice where you are. You're coming out of the chrysalis. Are the wings out? Are you in flight? Are you still hunkered down inside the chrysalis? Wherever you are, allowing that to be. Allowing that to be your reference point in this now moment. Because from that, all flight is possible. None of us are going backwards. None of us can go back to crawling. Literally all here to fly. So let's make that matter. Let's make that real within us. Here we go. So. Nice deep inhale and exhale. Wow, more space. Yeah. Okay. Much more space, not confined, not compressed, not condensed. More like testing out the wings. And of course, when you start testing out anything, it works and then it doesn't work, and it works and it doesn't work. But there's a place in each one of us. There's a place inside. We know where our new flight is. We know what our new balance is. We know what the new normal is. And as we access that in times of being stretched, what's the new normal? Not going back to the old normal. We'll find ourselves in balance really very quickly. Right? Okay. Beautiful. Nice deep inhale and exhale, everybody. And let's go ahead and just give our bodies a nice stretch, give our wings a nice stretch, and open our eyes when you're ready. There we go. All right. Are you flying, Miss Sandie?
I want to address something you said there that really stood out for me, which was we're ready to be what we have become.
Always been. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that is a very profound thing to ponder, because I think it certainly answers something for me, that the perhaps the confusion, the feeling off, the straddling the lines, whatever it is, the discomfort, the wriggliness is because there is a part of us that is already there,
Totally.
and the rest of us hasn't quite caught up with it.
Right. And I think we're so conditioned in the way that we're conditioned that, we've been something in our own, imaginations or in the world. We've been something in a certain way. And now all of a sudden it's like we're being asked to be what we've become, not what we've always been, but what we are now. And I think that the body is typically the last piece to kind of catch up and say, yeah, I'll take flight too. I'll literally manifest this. And I think until that natural and organic movement happens, until the body kind of catches up and goes with the flow, until the physical catches up, it can feel very uncomfortable for a while. But I was getting so clearly when I was looking at this collective, that to go back to what our balance is now, not what balance used to be, but what is it now based on what we're becoming. I think it's a very different energetic space than where we're used to going to find our balance.
It's funny, isn't it? Because again, the caterpillar and the butterfly, they are both the same. But if you look at a caterpillar and a butterfly next to each other, you don't think of them as the same creature, and yet one became the other, and one is airbound and can land on the ground, and the other one can't fly until it morphs. So it's interesting, because I think of what must the butterfly's balance have felt like when it first experienced itself as a butterfly. And you were saying about our wings and taking flight, Suzy. It does feel like that human soul integration is caterpillar butterfly integration.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the whole perceptual shift, that was the thing that got me too. It's that, literally, I mean, the caterpillar sees from a particular perception, and the butterfly has a completely different way of looking at its experience. But yet, same creature, you're right, a creature, same thing that has morphed into something else. So there has to be a different balance within the caterpillar than there is within the butterfly, right? And so it's just accessing that, putting our perception or putting our, presence in that. What are we now? So. Yeah, because we'll be something different pretty soon. Once again,
The synchronicity of what happens when we speak, it never ceases to amaze me. Everything we've talked about tonight, I read a couple of pieces from Kai Patcher's latest report. I just want to add the last piece. I want to read the last piece that he said, because it fits so perfectly with everything that we've said. What he said was, so if you're feeling out of sorts, or that life is too weird right now, don't worry. Just reach as far as you can and try not to fall. you will probably find that you can stretch farther than you thought and break a perceived boundary you thought you needed or would never pass. Such is the nature of evolution. And in the stretching, moving, dancing, and expanding, we create the magic of our lives. Go for it.
Yeah, baby.
Yes, yes.
That's just so perfect.
I love him. He's great.
He is great.
He really is, yeah. And he's always smiling and laughing too. Well, I think we're pretty much out of time now. Is there any last quick thing either of you want to add to tonight?
The only thing I'll add is that last piece, Sandie, it's like I mean, it did. The whole show just clicked together for me when you read that last piece, and I had my own aha moments. So I don't know how our listeners are doing, but I really enjoyed this. So thank you.
Yeah, same.
Brilliant. Thank you both. It's always great to speak with you. That's it for tonight. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this month's show and whether anything we shared reflected your own experiences or inspired you to look at something from a different angle. So you can email us care of sandie.sandiesedgbeershow@gmail.com, and you can check out Lee and Suzy's profound bodies of work at their websites, leeharrisenergy.com and suzymiller.com. Thanks for joining us. I'll be back next week with another edition of What Is Going On. Till then,